back to FANSPLAINED, a media criticism podcast. God, I can't even get through it because you're too busy sitting over there laughing. Should I even restart this, or am I keeping this in here?
Just keep going.
Okay, with Ryan and M. I'm Ryan, and this dork over here is M. She can't even say it for herself, so I had to. That's just where we are this episode. So, in this episode, we're covering our early screening of the much anticipated by us.
Yes.
Don't Worry, Darling.
I was really hyped for this movie ever since I saw the first trailer.
Yeah. Hype as hell. It's
Yes.
extremely pretty. We loved it.
Yeah.
Spoilers. We loved it.
And we're gonna spoil it. So.
Yes, same disclaimer here. We are going to spoil the hell out of this movie.
Yes.
It is one that is best experienced if you do not know anything about it.
Aside from just the trailer, and then you go in like...
Yeah, I mean, as little about it as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we don't give a fuck about whatever manufactured drama people
Yeah,
have
we're
been
not
doing.
here for yeah, we'll get to that. Yeah. Anyway, so there will be spoilers here. If you haven't seen it, want to see it, care about spoilers, come back to this after you've seen it. Otherwise, you have been warned. There will be spoilers. Okay. So, this movie is directed by Olivia Wilde, as I'm sure anyone who does not live under a rock knows at this point. It stars Florence Pugh,
Pew pew.
Harry Styles, Chris Pine, Gemma Chan, Olivia Wilde, and a bunch of other secondary characters.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Right.
Florence and Harry and Chris are basically the most important people in this movie, so that's where it is.
And Florence and Chris dominate every scene they're in because
my God.
they are Florence Pugh and Chris Pine. So
Yeah.
anybody, I'm going to say it right now.
Harry Styles' acting was fine.
Harry Styles' acting was just fine, honestly. It's just when you compare him and put him next to Florence and Chris, of course he's not going to seem as good. He's not as seasoned as they are.
No.
He's still working his way into the industry. He's just fucking fine, guys.
Yeah, he's just fine. Also, okay, so the big spoiler about this movie is that Harry Styles is an incel and this is all Black Mirror.
Yeah.
Basically. Knowing what we know about Jack, I don't think there's anything Harry Styles did wrong.
No, I don't.
I really don't. I thought he was fine. He's in an appropriate amount. It's really not about him.
Yeah, it's not about him, it's about Florence.
Yeah, it's about Alice. It is not about Jack. So I think a lot of people really just wanted to find reasons to complain about this movie, and there are layers to why I feel like this is the way that it is.
Yeah.
The first is that Harry Styles is well known as the guy from that boy band that no one would shut up about a few years ago, right? Mm-hmm. And he is still a musician that is beloved by a lot of teen girls.
And women.
And women, and gay men.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there are straight guys who like Harry Styles too, but you get what I mean. Like,
And
predominantly
also,
his fan base is female.
And Harry basically came out as being bisexual. He likes wearing dresses and nail polish, and he's very comfortable in his sexuality.
And this threatens a lot of the people who are a lot like the character that he plays in this movie.
Pretty much, yeah.
And these people tend to not like it when there is a lens pointed at them.
Yeah.
Exposing the kind of crap that they do. But a lot of this is because his fan base is primarily female. A lot of it is either former teenagers or current teenagers. And I think a lot of it boils down to, we have to hate this because this is a thing that teen girls like. So we are automatically predisposed to find a reason, at minimum, to shit on this thing.
Or that means, or in their eyes, is like it's automatically inferior because a bunch of teenage girls like him.
Yeah.
But but you are completely degrading and belittling an actually well-made film that is a horror onion, honestly. The more layers
terrifying.
The more layers you peel back from this story.
Yeah, the deeper you get into this story, it's like horror Inception.
Yeah, it's
I don't want to go deeper.
It's an onion. Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to go deeper.
The more you peel back, the worse
crying
it gets.
More. Yeah,
yes.
You cut the onion and you cry, except that you're peeling the onion and I'm just crying because the more onion you peel, the more horrifying and sad it is.
Like, Alice literally, she was a well-respected surgeon, medical professional. She was the breadwinner. She was the one doing all of this. And Jack stayed at home all day, wasn't really working.
Started listening to a Joe Rogan, not Joe Rogan, but a Joe Rogan-esque QAnon podcast.
Yeah.
And
goes
full alt-right.
Couldn't even bother to cook them
order
dinner.
Food for her. Like,
Yeah.
Jesus. Try harder, Jack.
Couldn't bother to cook for her. Couldn't bother to clean. Couldn't do shit while he was there.
Yeah,
just to try and, I don't know, help out.
Yeah,
it's not belittling or degrading to help out your partner while they're working.
Yeah,
God
no,
damn.
I find this wild because, like, I don't think that he started out that way. I think it's that his inability to handle his unemployment just, he kept spiraling further and further and further down into that depression, and he just kind of lost any part of himself.
Yeah, because, there are moments where he genuinely seems to feel, I think deep down he knows that what he is doing is
deeply fucked up, yeah.
But that doesn't stop him from doing it.
No, it does
So my
not.
sympathy is very slim.
Thin. Yeah, it's very thin.
It's very slim for him, but
the wild part I find about this, so I'm gonna get back to the ending in full, but basically we find out that the guys that have to leave once a day to go to their jobs are actually leaving the simulation to work real jobs to pay for said simulation.
Yeah.
That they have, most of them, trapped their girlfriends or wives or whoever into.
Yes. And the whole thing is like this 1960s, 50s setup of everyone
like
is
perfect life.
Yeah, it's the perfect nuclear family shit where everyone drives the same kind of car. They all
go to work at the exact same time. They all have the same suit.
Yeah, they all wear the same suits. Everyone's day drinking and night drinking. Everyone has a similar house and furniture. The women are all dressed up. They get up and make breakfast, and they stay dressed up and clean the house and cook everything.
Kiss their husbands goodbye every morning. And yeah, it's
this incredibly idealized world that we now know
was trash to begin with.
It was absolute. Well, we know it in the context of the movie, but we also know in actual real life and history that a lot of the women who were in that kind of life were either they developed alcoholism, they developed pill problems, they were miserable.
Yeah.
And not all of them, granted.
There's no such thing as an idyllic life, though, is basically what we're getting at.
Even in this movie and in real life, I'm sure there were women that loved being the housewife and being the mom.
I'm sure.
But there were also plenty of women that did not like that.
Yeah.
And this, I appreciate that we see that reflected in the simulation, too, where Olivia Wilde's character, spoiler, actually knows about the simulation, wants to be there because she gets to be with her children. She chose to be there.
Yeah.
However, none of the other women know this.
Yeah.
None of the other women chose to be here.
Yeah,
and that's royally fucked up, and it's royally kind of fucking rapey.
Yeah, it's absolutely that. The irony that I was gonna get to is that this all happens because of Jack's unemployment.
Yeah.
Right? So he puts them into this simulation so they all have this perfect life, and Alice doesn't have to work that hard anymore because all she's doing is working, and God forbid, after a 13-hour shift, she doesn't want to come home and bone down.
No. And she doesn't want to have to bother to cook either. She wants to take a shower and go to bed.
He makes the, quote, sacrifice to put them into this simulation for her. No.
Literally straps her down to the bed, has like an IV plugged into her, has her fucking eyes open like in Clockwork Orange.
Yes.
It is so wildly fucked up when you actually see what it looks like on the outside of the simulation, and it's awful.
This is all started because of his unemployment. So he puts them into the simulation and then goes and finds a job to pay for said simulation. Bud, you couldn't have just found a fucking goddamn job and then just, I don't know, maybe she wouldn't have had to work 13 hours a goddamn day?
Yeah, maybe you couldn't have been this proactive, when she was doing 13-hour shifts.
Yeah.
No, you had to
literally
you had to literally imprison her into something to find the motivation to go do what the hell?
Well, and
what the actual fuck?
I find it very funny that the podcast he's listening to, which is Chris Pine's character's real world podcast.
Yeah.
And then that's why he's the guy who's basically the cult leader running the suburban simulation thing.
Also, can I just say that Chris Pine is an amazing villain in this?
Yeah, he is.
He's
but, like,
so
if,
good.
If you're listening to, like, the podcast, he actually has all these, like, stutters and pauses and stops. Like, he is just as awkward as Jack is, IRL, because he's also an incel, because who would really think this up if it was not some random, creepy...
douchebag.
Incel weirdo who didn't know how to interact with people in real life, so he has to invent this thing for himself and other people to act their fantasies out instead.
Because guess what? In the simulation, the dudes get to pick what accent they have. They get to pick all of the stuff about them to make them perfect. So Jack's character ends up being British, and Chris Pine's character ends up being, like, so smooth in his talking. It's such a fucking male fantasy shit.
It is.
That it's in...
This is what I wanted WandaVision to be.
Yes, this is what I wanted.
This is the actual, like, creep behind the suburbia stuff.
This is exactly what I wanted WandaVision to be. I wanted it to open up on this fucking life, this fucking weird alternate universe shit.
Where everything was perfect and you didn't know why and there was no explanation for it.
I didn't want this stupid TV show gimmick crap garbage. I wanted this. I wanted WandaVision to be this. Yep. And I wanted us to get, like, these inklings of something not being right and the reality seeping in there, and the reveal to be, you know, kind of fucking as horrifying as it actually is, which the show continues to kind of gloss over. Like, Wanda,
whereas like this one is really all about finding that out.
Wanda, no, you literally mind rape these people.
Yeah, my big problem with this movie is its criticism.
Yeah.
Because I read this article. I don't remember which article it is. I may find it to shove it in the show notes at some point. That was basically, like, comparing the ending of the movie that we got to the proposed original ending. And we should note that the proposed original ending was written by men, and the script as we see it is written by a woman, like, rewritten from that original spec script. And directed by a woman.
Yes. And it made all the difference.
And it makes a lot of difference, especially when you get to the stuff that is different.
Yes.
So most of the complaints are, there are so many plot holes, and this doesn't make any sense. And so some of the arguments that they were coming up with about this, well, they never explained this, and they never explained this. They did. Actually explain all these things. They straight up explained that where the dudes are going every day is to their real world jobs. Yes. Jack specifically says this.
Yeah, he says it when he's screaming, guys.
Yeah, he's not, they're not going to some mysterious victory job. They are leaving the simulation to go make real world money to pay for said simulation because this is a pyramid scheme.
This whole article genuinely makes me think that these people did not pay attention to the movie at all.
A lot of it is like, did we watch the same movie? Because there was that complaint. They really conflated so we see this scene where Alice starts to, like, figure certain stuff out about halfway through the movie. And she starts, like, slowly unraveling, and everyone's gaslighting her and whatever, so she's made to think that she's just going insane. And so we see this scene where, like, these red coats or whatever, like, drag her away from Jack.
Literal
and
red coats.
they go and subject her to, quote, treatment, which is electroshock therapy. So this article conflated the electroshock therapy as real. This is not what happened.
No, it's just, it comes across as being electroshock therapy in the simulation.
Yeah, so what we're experiencing in that scene is the stuff that she is vaguely remembering in the real world, like those images that are, like, projected above the bed.
The dancing girls.
The dancing girls, mixed with what the simulation is projecting as basically her being unplugged from the simulation and plugged back into it.
Yeah, the simulation
that is essentially all that is happening during that electroshock therapy, is they are resetting the game.
Yeah, her being the electroshock therapy
did not actually happen.
No, it was just what the simulation was making her see while they were plugging and unplugging her.
Yeah, because no one modernly does that. That is very 1950s electroshock therapy.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure they don't even do EST anymore.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe they do.
They do. They do it. It's just not like that anymore.
Yeah, no. I'm sure it's not, because that is highly dangerous and screwed up.
It's far more controlled, and it's done a lot safer than it was.
Yeah, this was not that. It was an extremely, like, old school, when, like, you're watching, like, American Horror Story Asylum kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's the kind of EST setup we're getting through the scene, where you get, like, the thing in your mouth, and, like, the big old bulbous, like, little plugs on the sides of your head when they shock you or whatever.
Or even, like, in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, it's pretty much almost shot for shot the same thing.
Yeah. This is not reality. I get that that's a little confusing, because they're kind of mixing the two at that point, and they haven't, like, fully revealed anything yet. But I'm just explaining this for the person who was very confused about this movie. That didn't happen. This was her being unplugged from the simulation because they realized that she was figuring stuff out and plugging her back in so they could theoretically get a clean slate.
Let me explain it this way. The brain can really only process so much at any given point.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that was the fact that her brain could not process all of what was going on at the same time, so it focused on what was going on in the simulation.
Yeah, well, and God only knows how long she'd been plugged into that. If you have your eyes pried open like that, you're not getting sleep. Yeah. So God only knows how much stuff her brain is actually trying to intake.
Yeah.
Of course they're gonna have to do that every once in a while.
It's why shit starts like, she almost, like, there are times when she kind of almost commits suicide in the simulation, and I think part of that is her subconscious trying to get her out of it, because there's a part of her that knows
that this is deeply wrong. Yeah,
but again, her brain can only process so much at any given time,
and it's the triggers from the real world that keep leaking, like, that keep jarring her back out of it. Jack's song, some of the imagery that we kind of see, like, flash every once in a while.
Yeah.
So, look, no, this didn't actually happen. Jack does explain what is going on.
They're trying to do what is called visual storytelling, guys.
Yeah, I didn't really have a problem with this. They explained what Chris Pine was doing. Again, Gemma Chan's sudden, like, turn coding at him at the end makes perfect sense to me, too, because she is probably one of the few other women who does actually know what's going on.
Yeah, and she's in on it.
She was probably in on it from the beginning. They kind of imply that.
Yeah.
Because she knows. And basically what she and Bunny, to a lesser degree, are doing... Well, Bunny to a different degree, because Gemma Chan is very complicit in what's happening here.
Yeah,
and profiting off of what's happening here, like, very likely.
We don't get as much motivation as
I would have liked some of that, but there's not enough time in this movie to do that.
But at the same time, I feel like we get enough, or we got enough to understand what was going on. It's just, I don't know. I feel like visual storytelling is something that, when a movie does it correctly, it's so good, and it's and it's obviously the perfect medium for it. I have a big problem with people who can't, I don't know, follow along with it,
with what they're being shown in, like, these, all of these scenes are incredibly important. That's the point. And if you're just kind of like, oh, he's listening to a podcast, whatever, and you're checking out, you're gonna miss all of the salient details that explain what is actually going on.
Like, we don't always need things spelled out for us in an info dump. We don't need an exposition dump.
No.
You shouldn't need to have your hand held through every fucking movie or climax or twist. That's not any fun. And people complain about it endlessly. This movie doesn't do that, and yet I'm still seeing all we get are the complaints that they didn't.
Yeah, instead we get the complaints that they didn't explain anything.
And
I'm like, okay, so this article that I read actually compared it to the proposed original ending for the spec script.
Yeah.
And some of these changes I really, really am glad they made, because the original spec script basically was a little too overt. It over-explained everything. And so if we'd actually gotten that, which this article says, well, we should have gotten this one instead.
Like, people want to complain.
I disagree, because you would have been complaining then that it over-explained everything.
Like, people want to complain about this movie being heavy-handed. No, the original ending for this was way heavy-handed.
But worse, because it undermines Alice's entire story.
Yes.
So basically, the original spec script, one had, like, Jack explaining everything to Alice out loud, and then she would, like, go back into the simulation a couple different times willingly. The original spec script also didn't have Chris Pine's character in it at all. So it was literally just the Florence versus the simulation.
Florence in the simulation.
Florence in the machine. But on top of that, there's this one point when she goes back into the simulation and they continue to try and gaslight her about this, even though she's basically, what it sounds like, she's already kind of started to figure this out, and the movie's just kind of relying on people to, like,
catch up.
Ignore that she started to figure... It's like one of those movies where it's like, you know all of these things already, why are we, like, suddenly playing dumb again, like we're 20 minutes back?
Like, we have ADD, and we were able to pay attention to everything going on in this movie.
Yeah, exactly. So
there's no excuse for all you other
simulation,
people.
Figures it out again, and there's this one point when Alice threatens Jack with SA with a broomstick up his butt. And I'm sorry, but...
What?
This is very different from what we were just talking about with Barbarian, where we're talking about the literal rapist and him kind of getting a taste of his own medicine and the lack of agency part of that, but not necessarily the SA part of it.
Yeah.
This, on the other hand, is weaponizing SA in an opposite way, where it's not even, it's just revenge, but not revenge for the same thing, which would still be pretty screwed up, if honestly.
And doing it to a partner.
But honestly, doing it to a partner, threatening it enough, like, the story where Alice keeps going back into the simulation even though she knows about it, kind of ruins the whole, like, twist that, oh, well, he removed all her agency and she has all this reason to be mad at him, because she does, what the fuck. But, so that's already undermined, but then you have her threatening to SA her partner
in the simulation
to get him to tell her the truth. I don't care if she wasn't gonna do it.
Yeah.
Who thinks of that? Because that was immediately removed when, no, this was rewritten by a woman.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I don't need that in order to explain to me how horrible all of this is.
Yeah, no, just seeing what the state of Florence's character outside of the simulation was more than enough for me to go, oh, this is fucking awful. Like, I don't need, you know, anyone to threaten anyone with actual literal rape to be like, this whole situation is incredibly rapey.
Yeah, and the whole podcast angle wasn't really there. So you just kind of, it kind of makes Jack a worse character, honestly, because he's just doing it of his own volition. He wasn't even, like, convinced to do it or kind of, like, brainwashed by, like, these really bad ideas led by all these not charismatic at all, but desperate people.
Yeah, who think they're owed something.
No, it's a lot more poignant if you make it a little more, like, the current state of things.
You know, a little more nuance. A little nuance goes a long way.
Which is funny, because the whole simulation, instead of being called Victory, which is the name of, like, the fake town that's in the simulation, the simulation was called Alt Life.
God.
So it's like Second Life, but real. But you're making it, like, the alt-right, so it's incredibly on the nose in the first place. Like, there's nothing about the spec script ending that I actually want. No. And it doesn't actually seem tighter. It doesn't clear up any plot holes. It just, like, outlines them in crayon a little more. Whereas, like, the movie explained all of this. You just needed to actually pay attention to the parts where they weren't out loud explaining all of it to you in an exposition dump.
And in the ending, she did, in fact, escape, because
it's like the ending to Inception, where everyone was like, this is so open-handed. I'm like, or open-ended. I'm like, no, it's not,
You can clearly see the top is toppling.
Yeah,
before it cuts. And at the end, you can clearly hear Florence's character
gasping.
Wake up.
Yeah, you can hear
the
same thing. It's the same thing, except that people wanted to hate on this movie versus everyone going nuts over Inception.
Yeah.
It's the same twist. It's not open-ended. It ended.
If you paid
we know what's going on.
If you think it's open-ended, you were not paying attention. I'm sorry to tell you that.
Yeah, like, I feel like a lot of the criticism of this movie is just, they'll sit here and talk about how the movie is basically just, like, white woman feminism, and I get some of the reason for this. I do. I do, because there are a lot of white ladies in this movie, but I'd also kind of argue that inceldom is very populated by white dudes. But at the same time, like, you can't call something intrinsically, like, feminist or too heavy-handed in the feminist stuff if you're gonna then turn around and basically use all your criticism to be incredibly misogynistic and play into all these incredibly misogynistic things following this film around.
Yeah.
Like, it can't be both at once. So either you're criticizing it from an unfeminist standpoint, or you're saying it's not feminist enough, or it's too feminine. Like, make up your minds, but I feel like a lot of this criticism is just, woman dared to make a movie. Because I guarantee if a dude had made this, like, say Ari Aster had made this movie, right? People'd be going nuts.
People would be losing their minds and calling it great.
And there would be no manufactured drama. Oh, Harry Styles spit on Chris Pine, who clearly just found the sunglasses sitting in his lap that he forgot were sitting in his lap. I mean, I've done that. I have ADD. That's clearly what that whole thing looked like to me. It's like, trash.
I can't help but feel like there's so many male directors that do not get even half the shit that Olivia Wilde got during the whole press junket of this movie.
Pretty much.
Like, I genuinely just don't give a fuck about any of this drama because
it's insane.
It's bullshit.
It's stupid.
It's bullshit, it's stupid, and you're taking away from a movie that actually does have some shit to say. If you don't like how it says it, fine.
That's one thing. That's like, maybe it's not for you, it didn't connect with you, that's totally okay. You didn't like it, that's fully allowed.
All films are subjective, all art is subjective, but you cannot sit there and bitch about it being white, woke, feminist, and then turning around and buying into all of this fucking bullshit
misogynistic
drama.
Garbage. Yeah, like, it's
no other male director really seems to get, just female directors.
Yeah, it's either Harry Styles is a bad actor, or they're mad at Olivia Wilde because why? She's dating Harry Styles? Like, it literally comes down to Harry Styles is liked by a bunch of girls, therefore he's garbage, therefore this movie is garbage.
Also, I just want to say, any narrative that shows women who are still, a marginalized fucking group at this point and have, less fucking rights in America than a gun, I really have a problem with people being like, oh, it's white woman, Black Mirror and shit, when it's like, okay, but like, when women are in a narrative like this where they are literally being subjugated and, mind raped into a simulation that turns them into just like perfect housewives, you're gonna tell me?
I don't think it's what the problem is I don't think that it's a case of white saviorism here, because Florence is not out to save anyone but herself. And honestly, one of the other villains for this, and thank you for getting me back to this, one of the other villains in this is a white woman who's not telling anybody the truth and is contributing to gaslighting these other girls to either keep the peace because all she wants are her kids, and I'm very sorry that she's lost her kids and stuff, and, like, I have some sympathy for Bunny here, right? But at the same time, I'm like, girl, you knew everything. You are so complicit in this.
Which also explains her whole freak out on Alice in that little bathroom where she's like, you're just being a selfish, spoiled brat.
Because she doesn't want anyone to ruin her perfect fantasy. And just because she got to choose this, she is ignoring the fact that most other people didn't.
Yeah, she's conveniently ignoring the fact that all these other women don't.
Like if you want to argue that anything is white lady Black Mirror, right? It's that.
It's Bunny's narrative.
Because it is intentional at that point, because Bunny is very much contributing to the problem. So, like, if you want to call it that, fine, but let's call it that intentionally in the places where it actually fits.
Yeah, because any narrative that's going to show women basically being mind raped and forced into situations like this,
it sucks for everybody.
Yeah, it sucks for everybody. It doesn't matter what color they are. It sucks for all the women in that situation.
But
regardless.
Again, I would also argue that this whole coterie of dudes who listen to serial numbers filed off the Joe Rogan Experience, predominantly white guys.
I mean, most of the dudes there were, in fact, white.
This is what I'm saying. Like, of course you're gonna kind of see that, because this stuff is being spoon-fed to a lot of usually white nationalists.
I mean, there were a few...
Just a thought!
There were a few people there.
Yeah, I mean, you're always going to have that, but, like, if you're going to call it that, again, there are intentional choices being made here that lead to that. I might agree with that, but there is a point to why it's doing that.
Like, I'm not just gonna assume that Olivia Wilde made most of her cast white because, she's white. I'm not gonna just assume that.
No, I think it's being done intentionally because this subculture is incredibly disenfranchised, sad, middle America, former middle class families.
They're a bunch of
white boys.
And instead of blaming the actual people they need to blame, they would rather turn around and blame the women.
They'd rather turn around and blame society and trap their girlfriends into a simulation where they get to control everything.
They want to blame the gay guy down the street. They want to blame
note that there are no gay people in this simulation either.
Yeah.
That is the point, because again, these are a very specific type of dude, and again, that subculture tends to be pretty white nationalist and neo-Nazi and alt-right, and of course the majority of those people are going to be white.
And, entitled.
Just a thought.
And, entitled.
Yeah. It's the entitlement there, too.
In fact, that's even there, in that whole party scene. This is our world. This is our time. They feel entitled to all these women. They feel entitled to this life. They feel entitled to this fantasy. It's all right there. It's all spelled out. If anything, again, like we were saying, after the fact, it's even more horrifying when you look back on all these scenes.
The deeper you get into this, the more fucked up it is.
Yeah.
So again, I would argue that it is, yes, it is majority white. I will give anybody criticizing it, I will give you that, but at the same time, I'm not sure that's unintentional.
Yeah, I think
and
that's
I don't think it's being done in a way where it's like, well, I just didn't want to hire actors of color. No, I just think that this subculture is very predominantly sad,
and
entitled white boys.
And unfortunately, a lot of the imagery from the 50s and the 60s, is
also incredibly white.
Yeah. We don't actually see a lot of
I mean, this is people being brainwashed by a podcast of a dude going, we need to go back to the 1950s. I'm like, it's incredibly obvious what they're mirroring here. Of course it looks like this. It's supposed to look like this.
GMP.
Yeah. It's supposed to look like this because that's what that subculture of people looks like.
And it's also what they really want.
And it's the kind of shit they espouse out loud.
Out loud, man. If you haven't been paying attention to the news, then you're not going to understand that part. Yeah,
I don't think that this is one of those like cringeworthy, oh well, you could have cast more actors of color. Yeah, she probably could have, but I think we're making a pretty intentional point here.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, maybe she's not, and maybe I'm very wrong about that, but at least that's the way I interpreted it.
I mean, like I said, historically, you look at the 50s and the 60s and all the imagery from it and all of the footage that you can find of it on YouTube, and it is primarily white.
Because it's been whitewashed, of course.
Yeah.
Like, we forget about all those narratives. Would it have been a more interesting movie if we could have gotten into a lot of those nuances? Yeah, probably.
Sure. But
I think it would have been a far longer movie, and the focus would have been a different movie.
Also, it's primarily a simulation done by a white
guy who wants this very perfect Aryan pseudo suburbia nation thing. So again, I kind of think that this is the point, and I kind of think that is the reason why the first woman we see to figure it out is who it is.
Yeah. Also, I just realized Chris Pine's character is with Gemma Chan, sorry. I always say Gemma.
I used to too. It's fine.
He is with an Asian woman.
Mm-hmm. And she is one of the few there as well, if I remember correctly.
And I just realized that kind of...
That also plays into a stereotype, too. But at the same time, she is also aware of it.
The lotus blossom stereotype, basically, because she's focused on being graceful and instructing people in dancing.
Yeah, again, this dude is really kind of racist, which is kind of the point. The simulation is going to be kind of racist because the guy who created it is kind of racist.
Which makes her stabbing him at the end even that much more better.
But at the same time, like... she is a little complicit in it, which is a little weird. And if she's going to continue to profit off of that, I have questions.
But I want to reiterate...
But I don't think that is a flaw in the movie, not over-explaining that, because it's not about that.
But I also want to reiterate that Chris Pine is an amazing villain in this.
Oh yeah, no, he's great. He's very charismatic. You love to hate him. You love to see what he's going to do next. I really wanted to see him and Florence make out.
Him and Florence, honestly...
They had such ridiculous chemistry.
And they stole every scene they were in, and the scenes when it was, like, them going head-to-head were the ones that I was, like, the most over.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, if you want to just see amazing performances and you don't care about the rest of the shit we've talked about, then just go to just watch them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they're amazing.
It on that alone. I don't think that this is a style over substance thing.
No.
Or styles over substance, if you will.
No.
I don't think it's that. It is incredibly gorgeous. It's very lush. They put a lot of money into making this look.
Also, they have food.
Perfect.
They also have, like, cooking food ASMR in there.
Yeah, you definitely got some ASMR out of those cracking eggs.
The cracking eggs, the fucking saran wrap, the way she was, like, rubbing the meat and all the cooking.
Except the really saran wrap scene gets real weird real quick.
Well, before it got weird, it was nice. And then it got weird, and I'm like, I don't like this anymore. It took my tingles away. I don't like it.
That's part of the horror onion. It's one of the layers of the onion.
It is. But, man, I really liked the scenes when she was cooking.
Yeah.
As an aside.
Yeah.
Anyone else who watches those cooking ASMR videos, you know what I'm talking about. You know.
But, yeah, like, I don't think that this movie is half as bad as a lot of the review bombing. If you're willing to go watch it without all the review bombing. Again, we've basically spoiled it for you, so I hope you didn't care about that.
They just hate to see a girl boss winning.
Gaslight, gatekeep, girl boss, but, like, really.
But really, this
But,
time.
like, seriously, because that's actually what's happening. But, yeah, so... We thought that it was well worth the time. We really enjoyed it.
We got to go to a really nice screening.
Yeah,
we got to sit in really nice seats.
We got into a Dolby screening, so we got, like, these seats that, like, reclined, and we've never been in a Dolby theater before. It was amazing.
It was amazing. It was so nice. The seats were so nice.
Yeah, it was like an IMAX, but with, like, recliners
and the best thing,
cup holders, and it was so nice.
Well, being in the seats was one of the best parts, but one of the other best parts about it is the soundtrack to this movie is so nice, and it's so fitting, and we could hear it so well.
Yeah, and it would, like, shake the floor and stuff. It was really cool.
It was good.
But I also, now that you bring up the soundtrack, I had this thought while we were watching it. Can I just say that I really love this new resurgence ever since Dune? Of, like, everyone doing these soundtracks with, like, ladies, like, gasping and moaning and crying and stuff.
Well, actually,
I think, like, sound effects.
I don't even think Dune really started that.
I don't think it started it, but I think it brought it back.
No, I think what started it was that trailer for Midsommar that started the...
You're right. And this movie is extremely like Midsommar, so I'm surprised a lot of people, like, more people don't love it, because a lot of people really love Midsommar. Well, and I'm like, it's still Florence doing the same, like, traumatic shit.
Well, that's the thing, is that a lot of people are
Florence and terrible boyfriends.
Actually, a lot of people are divided by Midsommar. A lot of people really loved Hereditary, then Midsommar came out, and some people loved it, other people hated it.
How do you hate Midsommar? It's a perfect movie.
A lot of other people didn't get it. It was actually way more divisive than Hereditary.
You just broke my brain, because, like, really? I love that movie so much. Well, and, like, and I watched it late, right? I came to it later.
No, a lot of people...
Because I was going through a lot of shit the year that movie came out, and I could not watch a lot of horror movies that year, because I was dealing with a lot of, like, IRL stuff.
I remember warning you not to watch that movie at that time.
Because it opens with the sister unaliving herself.
And their parents.
And
I knew damn well that was not something you needed to see at that minute.
Yeah, I was going through a lot of really personal family stuff at the time, so, like, it was just not a good year for me to go see horror movies, and of course a lot of them were really triggering between this and, like, It Chapter 2. I'm like, I can't watch any of these right now, like, I am just not in the headspace for any of this shit.
Yeah.
So I came to it late. But I loved it so much that it did not occur to me that people didn't like it.
Yeah, when it first came out, people were pretty divided on it.
Because I was just like, everyone I know treats this like a classic, but, like, my my vision is very
No,
narrow because the people who still love it and still talk about it are, of course, going to be the people I see still loving it and still talking about it, right?
Well, I mean, a lot of, like, I follow a lot of film review people, and there were some people that really liked it. There were some people that liked the technical aspects of it, but didn't like the story. There were other people that
So, like this movie, except if it was actually given a fair shake.
Yeah. There were other people that did not like any of it, that they thought that it was, you know, below subpar compared to Hereditary. And then there were other people that did like it. Why? Because
the little girl's head didn't get chopped off by a telephone pole?
Just spoil everything, why don't you?
Look, we're already here. We already warned for spoilers. It's fine.
But I do feel like if this movie
also,
had
that
been,
movie's older than this, so it's fine.
I do feel like if this movie had been made by Ari Aster or by a male director, I still feel like it would not have gotten the shit that it did.
Yeah, I feel like it would have a lot better reception and would be at least given Midsommar's treatment versus whatever in the hell this turned into.
Yeah, because Midsommar, for the most part, from the criticisms I heard of it, people actually did try to give it a fair shake. People at least praised it technically, or they praised the soundtrack, or they praised Florence's acting. You know,
Florence's acting is like the only thing about this movie that like most people will not argue about.
Yeah.
Because how can you?
Yeah, you can't.
Give this woman an Oscar already, except they won't because it's a horror movie.
Pretty much.
She's gonna turn into my new Toni Collette, isn't she? Where they're just gonna keep like snubbing her year after year.
It depends on what she keeps acting in.
Swear to God.
But
swear to God.
But yeah.
Florence Pugh, bad boyfriend, cinematic universe. Hashtag.
I mean, she's racking them up.
Yeah.
You might end up doing it.
I'm into it.
But yeah,
this movie was great. I don't understand. Like, if it was given a fair shake, I feel like it would come off like a contentious A24 film, not tabloid
fodder
nonsense.
Yeah. Also, screw you, Shia LaBeouf. I prefer Harry Styles over you.
I mean, yeah, if I never have to see Shia LaBeouf in a thing
like,
again, it'll be a little too soon.
I got a bone to pick with you. How dare you pick a fucking fight with Tom Hardy for no goddamn reason?
Uh-oh.
I don't think so.
Uh-oh.
Not in this dojo.
Uh-oh. She's got words. She's got words. Anyway, we're gonna end this before she gets into more words.
Olivia was right to fire you. Florence is a better actor than you.
Hashtag allegedly, because I don't want to get sued over this.
Allegedly.
I
don't... No one really listens to our stuff.
You know what? Hashtag allegedly.
Hashtag allegedly.
Don't talk about it like that. It's what you tell me every day. But anyway, we are going to wrap this up because that is basically our reaction. This movie was great, and it is given a lot more shit than it
deserves.
Really deserves at all. Biggest snub of 2022 is how I feel about it right now.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's great. If you're willing to give it a chance, actually go watch it because it's interesting. If you don't like it, that's one thing.
If you watch it and don't like it, if you're just
mad at it because the drama, that's silly.
Yeah, then you're missing out on something really special that actually, I think what it's doing, I think it does it very well. And if you're just gonna judge it on all this preconceived shit, then yeah, you're gonna miss out on something special.
Yeah, I agree. Anyway, so thank you for listening to this episode of FANSPLAINED. If you got this far, I'm also going to skip the outro on this one too because it's just a reaction episode. We'll be back in the next episode with our full deep dives into Twin Peaks, and that will have the full outro and the full intro and everything else. So we'll see you next time.
Bye.